Oddworld Munch's Oddysee released as an Xbox exclusive back in 2001, being touted as a potential flagship 3D platformer for that console at the time. It followed on from its 2D siblings, Abe's Oddysee and Abe's Exodus, both of which were on the original PlayStation. It now arrives on the Switch in remastered form. Is it worth picking up? I'm Glen for SwitchUp, thank you to the publishing team for the review code, and now let's find out. Story-wise, Munch's Oddysee follows on from the first two games as Abe attempts to rescue more of his species, the Mudokons. He is joined this time by Munch, a member, the last member in fact, of a species named the Gabbits. I never played any of this series back in the day as I didn't have a PS1 or an Xbox, so I have no nostalgia for this game, but also no negativity towards it, as I hear is the case with some people due to its differences from the first two. As far as this game goes, I am tabula rasa, a blank slate. The game actually has a backstory option which will recap the events of the previous games in cutscene form. Quite extensively actually, the cutscene is about 10 minutes long. It's a completely separate option, so you don't have to watch it, you can just jump straight in if you wish. Gameplay wise, as mentioned, this was the first of the Oddworld games to make the step into 3D, and it plays as a 3D action-adventure platformer. Early on you will have sections where you play as Abe, you'll have some sections where you play as Munch, and then they will meet up together, and you will need to switch between them in order to use their particular abilities. There are some things though that both Abe and Munch can do, for example recruiting certain creatures that will assist you in making progress. Abe will need to find and recruit his fellow Mudokons, who will in turn perform chants that will open doors, with a certain amount of them being needed to open a particular area. Munch on the other hand will be rescuing small animals named Fuzzles, who will then fight enemies on his behalf when directed to. Once you have found these creatures and recruited them, you can hold down X to round them all up, press A to direct them towards a task, or press Y to detach them from you for a moment as well. You will also need to collect spoosh rooms whilst playing as both characters, which are found strewn across the game world. These are a currency of sorts, although the way that you spend them is by depositing them into certain gates, which will then open up a new area for you to move on, with a set amount being needed for each gate. Abe can regrow these shrooms by holding ZL over a used shroom space, whereas Munch has no such ability and must therefore ensure he grabs as many as he sees. As well as this, there are drinks machines which both characters can use. These will power up either Abe or Munch, such as giving them super speed or a higher jump, and these will be essential for reaching new areas or avoiding enemies. The effects of these drinks wear off after a short while. In terms of the different skills that both Abe and Munch possess, well, Abe is able to walk freely in land and is much more adept at jumping and navigating platforms, but he cannot swim. Going into water will kill him. He is also able to fight too by pressing ZR, although any friends that he has with him at the time will assist him in doing this. Abe also has his possession ability, which has been carried over from previous games, which will see him take control of enemies to get them to do his bidding for him. Munch is amphibious, so whilst he can walk on land, he can barely jump and is much more agile in water. Munch is also pretty much defenceless by himself and needs either the Fuzzles to attack for him or to use a few other tricks relating to the solar device he has been fitted with to stun enemies. You are trying to rescue the Fuzzles though, so you cannot just treat them as collateral damage. The game will track how many Fuzzles you rescue and how many are lost in battle for each stage. This will affect your Quama rating and ultimately the ending in which you get, so you cannot be too reckless with the lives of the Fuzzles. Due to his particular moveset, Munch's sections are more about avoiding hazards as well as taking control of certain machinery at times as well. You switch between the two characters by pressing the R button, and as I said earlier, you must use the particular skills of one of them to navigate parts of the level and open up a path allowing the other to join you. For instance, as I said, Abe can't swim, so Munch may have to swim through the water, finding a switch, or using spoosh rooms to open up a jet cannon for Abe to use to bypass the water. And this sort of like puzzle solving is evident throughout the rest of the game once the two characters meet up. Should one of your characters die, they will respawn as an egg at one of these points, which are located around each area and must be released from the egg by your remaining character, tracking them down and then tapping B. I liked how the puzzles were made up, with a combination of particular skills, the power-up drinks that I mentioned earlier, your character's respective companions, a bit of platforming and even machinery coming in to play such as cranes and cannons, and this is all used to good effect. One aspect of the game that I didn't particularly enjoy was how certain parts were very repetitive, calling for you to repeat an action a few times in order to find or transport a group of creatures, for example. Sometimes it also felt as if death was inevitable and you almost had to kill yourself just to get it over with and spawn with maximum health again. There were also just some little oddities, such as this part here where I died, as did all of my Fuzzles. I was taken back to a checkpoint and needed to retry the area, which is fair enough. However, all of the fuzzles remain dead. Surely if I'm restarting the area, then everything resets. I assume the reasoning for this is due to that good bad ending system, but it still just seemed a bit strange. Control wise, things are pretty standard for the genre, with movement handled with the left stick and camera movement handled with the right. Camera controls are flipped by default, but this can be changed in the options menu. Due to their respective abilities, Abe and Munch control quite differently, and neither are the fastest of creatures. The jump is also a little awkward to begin with, particularly when trying to jump out of the water and onto a small platform with Munch, with you needing to get used to the arc as he leaves the water in order to land where you want. This is all relatively fine though with a bit of practice. In fact, my biggest issue with the controls is just how many actions are assigned to the B button, making it a bit of a chore to pull off the action you actually want at times. For example, pressing the info buttons, jumping and picking up Abe's friends in order to throw them all require B, meaning that if any of these things are ever in close proximity to each other, it can become quite frustrating. You need to move the friends away from the info button and try again, and even then you will jump sometimes by mistake. I feel they could have made better use of the amount of buttons at their disposal to prevent this from happening. Gameplay has some interesting ideas and definitely holds up today, although some sections definitely feel repetitive. It scores 15 out of 20. Controls are serviceable, although I do feel the button layout could have been improved, and they score 14 out of 20. In terms of the visuals, Munch's Oddysee is of course a 19-year-old game, although it did receive an updated port for the PS3 in 2012 which improved the resolution and the character models as well, and it had a 2016 reworking of the PC version that fixed a lot of the bugs that particular version had. Now I cannot find confirmation of exactly which version the Switch port is based on, as the information I did find was conflicting, but it would appear to be one of the latter versions, and everything is of course in high definition. Whilst the visuals do show their age, everything has a really nice crispy look to it, even if certain textures still look a bit flat. Some parts of the game do look a bit dark, making it difficult to see certain hazards at times, and this is especially true of Munch's water sections. In terms of the frame rate, the game runs at a locked 60 frames per second, apart from occasional and minor drops every so often, as you can see here. Curiously, these happen mainly when playing as Abe, but for the majority of the game, as I said, it is a locked 60. Playing in handheld mode sees everything still looking nice and crispy, although when these stutters do appear, they are a bit more obvious. Menus support touchscreen use when in handheld mode. When it comes to the audio, I've heard that a big criticism of the game back in the day was the change in tone when compared to its predecessors. Taken on its own merit though, the game has a wacky humour that's quite endearing. All cutscenes are fully voice acted, and I actually quite enjoyed these. Abe and Munch will spout lines of dialogue, as will the other creatures when recruiting or directing them, and whilst these do become a bit repetitive and sometimes play over each other, I did enjoy them and felt they added a lot to the game. The music is a lot more subtle than I was expecting, with the majority of what you hear being that of either the character soundbites or sound effects of the various machines and contraptions found in the vicinity. Whenever music is used within the levels, or at least is the main feature over the sound effects, what's there is of a very good standard. Visuals look crisp, and barring a few muddy parts during cutscenes and dark areas elsewhere, the game does itself justice considering its age. A frame rate that runs at a locked 60, bar a couple of stutters, definitely helps with this as well, and it scores 15 out of 20. Audio enhances the experience by way of a good use of music and environmental sounds, and scores 16 out of 20. Oddworld Munch's Oddysee costs £26.99, $29 or €29.99 or 45 Australian dollars, and there is a 33% discount on these prices which lasts until the 28th of May. The game takes around 12 to 18 hours to complete depending on your skill level, and as mentioned there is the good and the bad ending which may tempt some people to dive back in should they not achieve the ending they desire. To be perfectly honest, the discounted price is much closer to where this game should have been priced by default, as in my opinion something in the region of £15 to £18 would have been more reasonable given the age of the original game. I have heard that there is a physical version of the game in the works, but it will not be available until later in the year. Value really is the sticking point of this package, and it gets 10 out of 20. To conclude, Oddworld Munch's Oddysee is a game that definitely has enough about it to still feel fun and relevant all of these years later, even if like me you've never played it before. There are parts that could have been modernised, although I suppose it is a remaster rather than a full remake, but this statement is at odds with the higher price point being asked. While certainly not full premium price, don't get me wrong, it's expensive enough that certain flaws will grate more than they would have otherwise done. Fans of the series may well get their money's worth at full price. For everyone else, I would advise either taking advantage of this introductory offer or waiting for a similar sale in future. Oddworld Munch's Oddysee gets a SwitchUp score of 70%. Thank you everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed that review. Please do remember to leave a like if you did. A quick thank you to our Patreons as always for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, stay safe, and until next time, happy gaming.